Welcome to the podcast with your favorite cash flow guys, Mike and Blaine. Giving you the best advice while having a beer. When you're running a business, there are problems every day. Let Mike and Blaine help you out and guide your way. Cheers to the good times with Mike and Blaine for business, beer, and BS.
Hey, episode 86 of Mike and Blaine. This is nothing but business, beer, and BS. And we got a good topic today because it's something that comes up all the time. But I'm Mike Milan, also known as Cashflow Mike. That is my partner, Blaine Birch, the CEO of Dry Run. What's up, Blaine?
Man, 86. I'm ready to do this. Ready to do it. Looks like a good topic today, too. So it's going to be fun. Meaty one.
Yeah, right. So, 86. I tell you, I've been sitting in rain and clouds and everything in Texas for like 2-3 weeks, and it is sun. So, I went out, laid in the sun. The dog loves it. I can't get the dog in the house anymore. He wasn't go out there and lay on the tile around the pool.
Nice. Well, it's smoking hot here too. So we're getting ready to start making our way north. So we'll be back in the cold soon enough.
That's good because that's before you catch fire in Arizona. It's so hot there.
Yeah, I know. We're almost into the can't sit in the backyard, can't hop on the bikes, can't do all the fun stuff because it gets too hot. So it's like good time to head out.
But I'm seeing you on social. You're doing all that right now. Did you go to our restaurant? You went to our restaurant.
Yeah.
Homo.
Yeah. Last night.
Oh, without me.
And we got to eat. But what was really funny is we got there and the parking lot was slammed. And so I drop Heather off and she goes up to the door and they say, well, it's an hour wait. And then they said, or you can just get takeout and sit on the patio. So we got a pizza. And then I walked over to the bar, got some beer, and then they literally brought us plates and silverware and everything. And we sat on the patio where it's awesome, and we had our pizza in like 10 minutes, and it's an hour wait to get in. So people waited everywhere. We're just like, we're already eating. Then we got some gelato, and off we went. It was awesome.
So that's a life hack for Scottsdale.
Life hack for Scottsdale. Just take it out and sit on the patio. Like they got a nice little patio there. Awesome.
Hey, so you're already drinking. What is that?
I'm just digging in already. Okay, so today I've got, wrong way, Beachwood Citraholic. And, honestly, I don't think it's the coolest can, but it was honestly one of the last ones standing in the fridge here. But these guys, I know they make some good beer, and Beachwood is out of Huntington Beach, California, which we're actually going to be driving right past Huntington Beach next week. So, I don't know, maybe we'll pop in and grab a beer.
Got it.
What do you got?
Got it. Well, as you know, I'm still sponsored by Larry Weinstein, CPA out of Houston, right? It's his final week. And I took some of his money and went upscale, right? I went premium beer, something I probably don't buy on my own. But have you heard of Duvel?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, right. So this isn't the original beer, but this is that triple hop IPA. But it's a Belgian IPA, so I'm excited for it. Make sure it's not 12% again, or
that was a bit of a train wreck last week with it. We seem to alternate with the heavy ones, so we'll see what you got there.
Damn it, I think it's 9.5.
Yeah, at least it's not a huge bottle.
9.5. Oh, that's still high. Yeah. It wasn't a train wreck last week. What happened was you had me read aloud to the class from ChatGPT. I'm like, we never read on that. You see that I had to pull glasses out just to read how much alcohol was on that beer. I'm like, here, I'm trying to read off the screen aloud in real time, in real life. Now I know how kids feel in school trying to read aloud again.
Yeah, you have to, ChatGPT, we got to get to the point where we can say, can you please read this aloud as well? And just let it do its thing, because, by the end of the show, neither of us are in shape to be.
Not after 11, 12% beers.
No. No, it's not going to cut it. You got some trouble there, right? Don't leave me and go get an opener again. That's
No. Yeah, Breger loves that part. I think he plays it for himself like every week. He's like, "Oh, that's my favorite episode." Is when Blaine just sits there and mumbles to himself. He gets totally off topic. He's not even talking about what the episode's about. He doesn't know what to do. He's flustered.
Yep.
Hey, and Breger, I'm gonna put some social pressure on you right now. Breger might have another sponsor for us.
Cool.
All right. He's involved. Check this out.
Yeah.
He's involved. All right, so you know there's a big solar eclipse going to happen next
Yes,
year.
I've seen stuff online about it actually. Yeah.
Coming right across Texas. He's involved. I think it's a family type operation. They have solar eclipse glasses.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm trying to talk him into, sponsoring the show. We'll pitch solar eclipse glasses. Especially right here in Texas, people need to get those. They need to buy them. Go look for them. But Breger, you gotta give me a link or something. And cash.
We'll still promote and also send me a pair of the glasses because then we can wear them while we're talking about them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we can actually show them. Exactly.
Show their action. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So Breger, you are on the spot. And hey, guess what? And I got some sad news to report. Right, sad news.
Okay.
Neighbor Pat's moving.
Yeah, you told me a little bit more. But this is the first time I think you've mentioned it publicly. That's a hard day for you, man.
Yeah, so I'm super sad about it. Neighbor Pat's moving. He did ask me. He came over yesterday, and we sat outside, and we just talked and commiserated about what's happening in his life, and it's a great move for them. It really is. It's gonna be a great move for him and his family. But he wants to make sure he sponsors us again before he goes up to Dallas or Dallas Fort Worth area. So he's gonna move the other side of the state. So. We're always going to have a special place in our heart. I'm going to have a space on the deck for him. And anytime he wants to sponsor, go. But he wants to make sure he sponsors the show one more time before he leaves.
Oh, nice. Well, appreciate that, Pat. That's, man, big support that you've given us over the little time here. So that's great. And best of luck in Dallas. And at least he's in the hood, still kind of in the neighborhood for you. So that's good.
He's still Texan, right?
Yeah.
He's not leaving the area yet. So. Hey, big topic, right? And the reason why I picked this one is I'm seeing this everywhere, and it's been kind of something kicked around for years and years and years. I think in the 90s is kind of when it, started to be kicked around. But usually when you're starting to see more and more articles, people talking about it, there's something to it, and there's a bunch of companies that have already made the shift. And what I'm talking about is the 4-day work week. Right. So what I wanted to talk with you today about is, hey, there's some pros, there's some cons. What do you think? That it can't work for everybody. I don't think you can have a 4-day work week for everybody. So maybe we'll talk about who does it work for and who doesn't it work for, right? Who can't use a 4-day work week?
Yeah. Well, and not just who does it work for, but how do you transition? Like for companies that would maybe want to transition. Yeah. I don't even know the mechanics of how you would transition. Well, let's dig into that. Does the staff do they work longer days on average, or do they take a pay cut, or does the company just try and make up the difference, or what is the typical way that you actually would make a transition like that? I've read a bit about it, but I don't know if there's a typical way.
All right, so there's two different schools of thought on that, and the thing is you kind of have a choice,
okay.
Right? The first one is called a compressed work week.
Okay.
A compressed work week is where I still do 40 hours worth of work. I just do it in 4 days. So I'm doing 4 10-hour days as opposed to 5 8-hour days.
Yeah.
The second option that people are kicking around, I think this is the one that's probably more debatable, is the shortened work week, which you're not doing 40-hour work weeks anymore. You're doing 32-hour work weeks. Mm-hmm. Right, so you're actually doing the same amount of hours per day.
Yeah.
It's just less days. And so when I looked at this, did you know the first person to put in the 40-hour work week was Henry Ford?
No, it doesn't surprise me though. But like, what was it before
Yeah.
then?
7 days a week. I mean, they would just have people come to work every day,
Wow.
right?
Okay, I
So
didn't
he
know that.
started giving weekends off. He started giving, and it might have been 6 days a week.
Okay.
Right? There might have been some, religious,
Yeah.
things back then, but it must have been 6 days a week because
Sunday off,
they mentioned specifically Saturdays. He was the first to give Saturdays off and shorten everything to a 40-hour work week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it is really appealing in so many ways. Like, and for the staff and also for business owners, the idea, a 4-day work week would be really, really such a massive benefit. I think mentally for you and your staff, I think you'd get hopefully more engagement and more energy through the week. But I will say, I can't see 4 10-hour days doing that. Like, I think those would be 7-8 hours of useful time and then 3 hours of painful time. I can't imagine the productivity and the effectiveness. And then you're kind of you're 4 days a week. You're kind of like, I know that people have to get their kids up and off to school and home to make dinner, and just life would get, I think, really pretty complicated. So the idea of actually just shorting it to 4 days, I think, makes a lot of sense in theory. But like a company like ours, people are used to us, being off on the weekend. We actually still respond to people quite often on the weekend if we need to, but generally it's like that's our off time. But now you add another day of the week where people can't get support. I don't know. Maybe you shift 4 days. Which 4 days do people get? Some are Tuesday to Friday and some are Monday to Thursday. I'm not sure.
And that's just it, right? I mean, some people will say, and this is especially if you're supporting customers on a round-the-clock basis, perhaps, well, we can debate that. Do you really need to support customers on a round-the-clock basis?
True.
I mean, I just talked to Allstate Insurance, right? And I was just talking about the claims process. And I can make a claim at 11 o'clock at night, but they don't assign it until like 8 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So even though I made the claim, I'm put it on. So is there ways where we can also do that, where I can still have access, put in my complaint, my troubleshooting, whatever,
Yeah.
and then they don't pick it up until the work hours. But what the thing is here is, does it actually increase your payroll? Right. And here's what I mean by that. If I now have to cover and shift, we're still covering 7 days a week,
Yeah.
but I'm only letting you work 4 days. Do I need twice as many people? Or once again, 20% more people?
Yeah, exactly. Do you?
Right, to be able to cover that extra day.
Yeah, and that's where it's like, if you cut down, you can't afford to pay the full. Like, you'd literally have to go, okay, 20% less work, 20% less salary, and is that even possible for a lot of people? So the transition is that's where I see the most difficult part is the transition to it. Would people take a pay break, and then also, until there's 60% of people are doing 4-day work weeks, your Monday or your Friday, it is expected probably that you can offer support. And but once it becomes the norm, then it's like, well, it might not be till Monday morning, right?
Yeah, I mean, it got to be the norm the other way real fast, which is I like it when I can call somebody on Sunday night and they answer the phone.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I've got like in my website, there's a learning management system, Tutor LMS.
Yeah.
And if you file a service ticket with them or whatever, it may be hours, if not a day, before they even get back to you.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing. I'm like going, that doesn't sound, it's not, I got used to it. Right. I got used to it because I like the platform. Generally, it works okay. But if I have a ticket, I know that they're not going to get back to me until later that day or the next day. Right.
Yeah.
If they got support that's overseas, sometimes the answer is waiting for you when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've kind of gotten used to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that transition is probably easier than within the business, I think. Like, and I'm of course, we're always talking about small business. That's where my head goes. Like, if you're a massive like enterprise, if a bunch of your staff or all of your staff said, yeah, we vote, we're going to take less pay for 4 days a week, then they can say, okay, we're going to. It's easier for them to say we're going to raise our staffing levels up by 20%, and balance it out and make sure we can still deliver the same amount of work. But when you're in a small business, that is like, can you imagine? It's like, okay, you've got a 10-person business, 15-person business, 20, you cut 20% off. You still have to produce the same amount. Can you actually put another, like what, are you going to put another full-time or like 4-day-a-week staff member to try and, because there's a point where it's like, yeah, it's almost like you only need a small part-timer for each department. Like that makes it really, I think, almost impossible to do.
Well, when you talk about taking a pay cut, you're talking about the version of 4-day work week where it's still 8 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I really don't think the 10-hour one is like, I would like to see some data that says that is effective and that actually is actually better for people's work-life balance too, to work 10 hours, because again, everything is built around this 8-hour work day. Even when you have like your meals and the, school for kids and everything is all built around that. That's a long work day. I know you and I do it all the time without even thinking about it. That's different, right? But
except for that 7 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know that. Like that's just sort of how life works. But to look at it from an organizational perspective and say, okay, would my team move to a 4-day work week and do 10 hours a day and actually be effective, and also be able to do what they do in their life? Because they're not the entrepreneur that does. Like, I solved a fundamental problem in a design problem we were having the other day at 4 a.m. I woke up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh shit, I got the answer. So I'm up and I'm working on this stuff. Like, I figured it out. You mock it all up and everything. That's just what we do, right? But it's different when it's your team and they have all these responsibilities outside of work. That I think that would be probably a hard transition, right?
Well, some work you got to look at productivity. Like if you move to manufacturing plant, that's a long time. 10 hours is a long time to be in the same spot doing the same job, right? I mean, yep. I'm making a widget, I push a button, I do this, whatever hell it is I do. Some jobs might be okay. Like if I'm a developer, maybe that's okay, right? Because I get in flow, and sometimes you don't.
Maybe, but I actually think mental fatigue, it has more of an impact than physical fatigue on a 10-hour day. Like when you're working high productivity, like I'm sure you're like me. You get in the office and I like friggin' a sprint. You sprint through and then like 20 minutes for lunch, and then you sprint through the rest of the day, and then you finally go, oh shit, I better stop. But
I have to physically go in there and turn on the TV for lunch just to turn it off. Just to turn off work, right? This room right in here.
I do the same thing.
Go into another room, turn on the TV, turn on something dumb that has nothing to do with anything.
And I never even get through a half-hour show. It's like we got to split it up. But it does. I do the same thing because I got to just shut down for that 20 minutes or whatever. 15. So that's so dumb. Like I should take more than that. I don't. But the mental fatigue, I'm sure you're like me. Like by the end of the day, if you've been doing mentally taxing work, like I'm done. Like you get after dinner and I'm like, I am just absolutely wiped. And I think the mental, it's actually as hard or harder than physical. So I think maybe there's some jobs that it's like, it's kind of repetitive, it's comfortable, and it's not overly mentally taxing. Yeah, there's probably some you could maybe stretch. I don't think you can just go uniformly 10 hours and it's like 10 hours you're hauling lumber, or 10 hours you're taxing your brain. Even when you're talking about a developer, at what point do they start making mistakes and slowing down and losing productivity? Because they can work, they can sit, they can type, they can do stuff. But I still wonder if sprinting through an 8-hour day and being really effective, these guys that say they do like 70, 80-hour work weeks, I just look at it and go, yeah, you know what? If you just were ultra productive and were doing the job right, you'd put in 40 hours a week and you'd actually have more done, because you just grind to a halt and you do mistakes and it's just slow. But you look at the clock and go, yeah, look how long I worked. Yeah, you just made more work for everybody.
I mean, I'm a big, proponent of, results count, not effort. I don't care how much time you put in, frankly. Yeah. There's probably some jobs. I mean, there's probably some support jobs or inside sales jobs that you could get away with that, right? And you split up your team and half and half cover. Or, I don't know, maybe.
But
not.
the issue there, then it's almost like remote work. Like it's getting trickier and trickier for businesses that had to sort of give remote work for a while. They're having a real struggle sometimes taking it back, and some people thrive in remote work, and some jobs thrive in remote work, and some don't. And if you want to do remote work, but you didn't thrive or your job is not very effective there, it seems to just cause a ton of friction. So that's the other thing is it's like these people get to do 4-day week, but you guys, pound sand, you can't do it.
All right, so here's what I think, though, about the 4-day week that's just a shortened week with less hours. Nobody's going to volunteer for a pay cut.
That's what I think is I don't think anyone would do it. So it's like if they started that way, it's like, man, it might have worked.
You would have to be hired in that way, right?
Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard to take a. Obviously, it's hard for anyone to take a pay cut. But there's no other way. Like, I can't see you do it. You can't just go like, okay, just work harder, guys, for 8 hours a day for 4 days, to get more done.
Yeah, you get 3 days off to spend the money you didn't make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's a big hurdle. That's a big obstacle to get somebody to take a pay cut to be able to do that. So if an employer's out there like going, oh, I can just go to 4-day work weeks because now it's acceptable because people need mental health days. But there is another cost. I mean, they say people take fewer sick days when they have the 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. Right? There's fewer sick days. There's actually, less burnout. There's more retention.
How much
there's
less?
All this. Well, I'm sure there's a study by it. I mean, Boston University did a study, and they have a table of all this, and it was like over 100 companies that have done it, and what's happened over the last 2 years.
I just want to know if it's 20% less, because that actually mathematically works out.
Let's ask ChatGPT.
Well, no, but like if it's like, hey, there's fewer sick days. Yeah, 20% fewer because there's a 20% less chance you're going to show up, like be sick on a.
Or I know that there's people who take sick days just to take a break.
Yeah, no, I know that. I've a few times in my past, I've had staff actually just tell me, I'm taking a mental health day. Like they just told me, and I think it's good that they were absolutely willing to be honest with me. But I'm sure, I know that would absolutely happen sometimes. But I don't know if it'd be as high as their number because I'm like, well, mathematically it might not quite work out. Like it'd have to be like 30% or something, I think, to actually, make it work out. But
yeah, all right. So obviously, any public protection companies can't do it, right? You can't just have it. I say that, and dang it, there's small towns all over the U.S. that don't have full-time police protection.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
That's there's not a police officer on duty certain hours a day. We even did that in highway patrol. In some of the remote counties, we wouldn't have a trooper on from 2 a.m. till 6 a.m. in some of the remote counties because there's just nobody moving or doing anything. They're just kind of sitting there. So we wouldn't even schedule that shift.
Man, you probably would want to.
And I'm sure Canada is the
you
same
probably
way.
don't want to advertise that to the criminals.
Well, no, it could be different. You got to remember, if you're listening to this today, this was back in the 1900s. And I used to hear stories of troopers from the 50s, like 50s and 60s, maybe even early 70s. Some of the old guys, when I first came on in early 90s that had been on since the 60s and 70s, they used to talk about how they had telephones set up. They didn't even have radios that would go car to car or back to it. They would have to call in at different spots. They had a beat, right? And they would go around. They go, oh, Joe's Butcher Shop. I go in there. That's my telephone. I call in at a certain time and see if there's any calls for me, or let them know I'm still alive. I made it on my beat.
Man, that's crazy.
Is that crazy? I mean, think about what technology did, right? Yeah. And police officers weren't on duty then full time. Yeah. They just get called out of their house. They get a call, in the middle of the night, and they go, hey, something happened over at the old Ponzi place. Go check it out.
Yeah. those types of because they're already like those types of businesses and organizations. I'm assuming most police forces now it would be 24-hour coverage 7 days a week or whatever, especially in cities, of course. But they're actually in a position that might even be easier if the appetite was there for people to take the salary that made sense to be able to do it, because they're doing shift work anyway. So that might be, and that might even be a job. That might be a job where 410 it makes more sense. I don't really know.
I mean, yeah, it could be, but I'm telling you, you have to be sharp every single second as a police officer. Every interaction, you can't be tired pulling over a car, on a 2-lane road at 1:00 in the morning. You can't be a little tired, right?
Yeah.
You can't go to a domestic disturbance a little tired, right? You got to be mentally acute, because it's as dangerous and as important in every single call and every single minute the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's a job that'll create some stress for you, right? I mean, it really
Well,
will.
and maybe that's a really good reason that's the type of profession that should have a 4-day work week, a 4/8, or whatever it is, so that you actually, when you're on shift and when you're doing your 4 days out of a week, or however many out of the month, like 16 days a month or whatever, you're something tells me I didn't add that up right.
Cash flow guy can't add.
Well, no, it's like technically if you said 4 weeks, yeah, it'd be 16 hours, but probably anyway, it's not quite 4, but that's probably the problem. My brain went, that math doesn't quite work out. But it might make more sense for everybody, except again, how do you afford it? How do you afford to have either as the individual making less money, or the county or the city or whatever paying basically 20% more?
Yeah. Well, why do you think this is even a thing? What's the need? What's the push?
Well, I think it's just the culture's changed so much that work-life balance is probably a bigger conversation than it's ever been, especially after COVID and people working remotely. It's just built momentum up from that. People's leisure time is just, it's spent different. Like there's people just do more stuff than they ever used to, and you value that time. And that time, like, man, if you ask me, do you love to do a 4-day work week? Hell yeah, I would. I just can't possibly figure out how we would do that, right?
All right, so an article I read about this a month or so ago thought that the opinion of this author was that it was a tax on employers, just like raising the minimum wage is a tax on employers, cutting back the amount of work. And this was even another idea, which was paying overtime over 32 hours, not 40. Right, so there's another idea being floated behind this shortened work week is, if you're going to require me to work 4 days at 32 hours, then I should get overtime over that. Right, so all of a sudden, there's a true cost associated with, okay, what really is overtime? Do I have enough people now to cover the time frames that I need to get covered? Can I still maintain the same productivity, which means generate the same revenue, with a shortened workforce? There's some real issues that it's a tax on employers. It makes it harder to do the same things.
Yeah, I think maybe the like, you can see the argument on both sides, right? You can definitely see for the employer that if they're like, a lot of people out there don't understand business margins are a lot more narrow than people think. Like, I think if you ask the average Joe off the street and they say, what's a profit margin for a business? Oh, it's 200%. The average profit margin's 7%. And that was in the good times. I don't think they'd have that now. So the margins tend to be pretty tight. So when you're there just isn't that much room to move. But then what happens on the other side is then prices have to come up, and then you basically generate inflation, and then it all just, kind of evens out a little bit. But like the like minimum wage, I think that was that's a good argument where that's the other side of it, is like, you want a workforce that's actually able to survive and able to live. And You can't have a minimum wage where like some of the minimum wages, you're like, you couldn't afford to eat if you lived on the street on those minimum wages. How on earth would you ever survive? So there's also the place where, well, that's where prices have to come up, and it has to be absorbed by the greater good, because people have to be compensated at least enough to be able to, scrape by, right?
Yeah, so I was living in Seattle when this $15 an hour thing, first got popular,
Yeah.
right? $15 an hour minimum wage. And the first time I remember seeing it was a small little suburb of Seattle called SeaTac, right? The airport's right there, and they have a lot of hotels, things like that. So think about the people that work in a hotel, right? They're mainly like housekeepers and cooks, and the folks, I call them heart of the house, because the hotel doesn't work without those people, right?
Yeah.
They just don't. I mean, I was in a hotel staffing company, so I'm like, man, you don't work without those people. So when they were forced to do $15 an hour minimum wage, there was a huge trade-off that the employees had to make. One, they lost the free parking. They now had to pay to park, right? Because they lost that as a benefit. Then they lost the free meals that the hotel gave them as part of their shift. They say, and there was a third thing. There was a change, I believe, a change in the health insurance program. So the $15 an hour got paid for other ways. Now, some business owners will do that, right? If you ask for, more money on this side, you're going to have to give up more money on that side, right? So, and the huge thing was, how could they take away benefits from me that I already earned or already had, right? So, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Is that, business is going to try to, I think what they try to do is, it's equilibrium, right? I need to make X number of dollars to keep this business open, right? And profit, and return it to shareholders, return it to owners that actually invested their own money. So it's like, if we can't return any money back to the owners, well, then we don't need this facility.
Yeah, and it's like it's not an easy sort of answer, because now again, like, you get into pricing, you can't just necessarily raise pricing. You raise pricing too much, fewer people buy, and the amount of revenue goes down, and suddenly you're basically right where you started. So there's complicated, all these complicated questions, but there's also the fact that, how do you have an engaged staff? How do you have a reasonable, how do you run a business, quite frankly, and care about your staff if they're living in complete poverty? Like, I don't, we can argue about this if you want, but
Hey, you're in a feisty mood. The last few episodes, you've been wanting to fight.
No, I'm just doing the math here. So $15 an hour times. Now, if you were doing a 40-hour week, right? So 40 times 15 times, now I'm going to say 52, even though, again, like, you have to actually have 2 weeks paid vacation and other benefits. So if you have all the benefits, everything under the sun, and you got $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, and you're making $2,600 a month. Mm-hmm. You live in Seattle. Can you actually do any? San Francisco? Like, what can you do with $2,600 a month? That's at $15. Now, when you're looking at places that have a $7 minimum wage, how would someone live on $1,000 a month? And if you want your staff to be engaged and love and and help you build your business and grow and do everything, how can you have somebody making $1,000 a month and have that make any sense?
Well, I mean, look at it differently right now. There is a labor shortage where people can't even get folks to apply for jobs or even come back to work as it is. Doesn't matter the wage. So the secondary problem is, will people actually come back to work? Some people won't even go back to the office because they've got used to working at home, remote.
Yeah. There's people that are their dads, like they've decided they want to stay remote, and the culture has shifted dramatically, and it's honestly it's pretty hard, I think, as a business to go and say, yeah, we let you work on remote for 3 years, and the business is still here. Now you have to come back. Like it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to ask, right? But there's I don't think you can say, well, there's some people don't want to work. Yeah, okay. I'm not. That's a different problem. People that are willing to work, people that are willing to work should be able to make a livable wage where they can actually have a place to live and afford afford the necessities of life and hopefully a little bit extra, like as a minimum, right? I don't think that's too much to ask. And it's the other side of it though too is, and this we haven't even got into this on the 4-day work week and minimum wage and everything, is how much more can, like something like Chat GPT we were talking about last week, how much more can artificial intelligence and robotics and all of these different things that can really increase efficiency help lift that up so that a business can be more profitable with less staff, and be able to say, okay, we may have less staff, but they're all going to be compensated well. And maybe we can do a 4-day work week at some point because 20% of the work can maybe be picked up by systems that maybe we don't quite have today.
Well, I mean, look at self-checkout. I mean, one guy runs 8 lanes or 10 lanes,
Yep.
Of self-checkout, or even some of the fast food restaurants you go to now. There's no person you talk to. You just type it in and wait for them to call your name. So am I going? At what point in time do employers decide that automation is better than employees, and for which jobs?
Well, part of it is a price point, and part of it is availability of good talent. That's just like you said, like some jobs they're really having trouble filling. Those are going to be the first to go, and culturally, people are getting more and more. Okay, we thought we saw a robot yesterday. I got to tell you, this is quite funny.
You did?
So we were at Home Depot just picking up some furnace filters, and we asked the guy, said go down to aisle 49 or whatever. So we walked down there, and the aisle was blocked off, and there was this giant 20-foot tall orange thing that I know was like a lift of some type, and it's beep beep beep, and it's sliding along, and we're looking at it. It's got this kind of clear glass front, and we don't see anybody in there. And I'm like, shit, I wonder if that's a robot. And so we're watching it, and like it's going, and we're kind of like, well, I hope he's done before the bloody store closes, because we're just waiting and waiting. And then right at the end, also this head pops up, and somebody was like hunched down or sitting down or something, and also was like, oh no, it was a person. And okay, and then I wish it was a robot, because then the guy pulled something off the shelf, went all the way down to the bottom, realized it was the wrong one because he didn't read carefully enough, all the way back up. So we were standing there for like 10, 15 minutes just to get a bloody furnace filter. And but I thought it was a robot, and I was all excited, and then I was like, oh no, it's some dude on like a little lift thing.
So that would have been funny if the robot would have made a mistake, recognized the mistake, and put it back.
Exactly. And
that would have been awesome.
And cursed and all that.
Like, oh shit, somebody did something awesome. The robot made its own mistake and corrected
and fixed it. Went, ooh, wrong one, and went back. But no, it was some guy that was so unimpressed that we needed furnace filters, and we were waiting for him. But at what point can a robot do that? That's the question. But at what point can half the staff in Home Depot be robots? I don't know.
And I'm telling you, my thought is that a robot won't make that mistake. It will scan, get the right thing, and not bring it all the way down to the floor, right? Think about the time waste. The time waste, now they're just moving that thing from top shelf all the way down. That's productivity you get back from a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're going to scan it and make the right choice before they bring it down.
And there's some things that there's some things that people in a store like that will always do better, I think, than a robot, because like we've talked about before, there's all these things with context and things that it's not necessarily going to know. But there's so many things that a robot can do better. There's so many things that AI can help us with and do a lot better and do fast, right?
Mm-hmm. Let me circle back to this minimum wage and what how did you describe it? Like
No, I don't know.
There was something
I'm
about
half a beer ago.
living a different, living a basic standard, right? What's the basic standard of living? I think is kind of what I don't remember the phrase, but that's what you meant.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, that you want your employees to have a basic standard of living, so they're happy, they're healthy, they enjoy things. I don't know that as at least a society. I'm talking society, Canadians. I mean, it doesn't matter. Mexico to Canada. We'll just say North America.
Yep.
Can we agree on what's a basic standard of living?
I think we can if you don't get into too many cement. I think there's an area where some countries and some cultures will think like sort of the work-life balance and comfort and everything is more important. But I think we should be able to agree that you should, like, minimum, you should have 3 meals, like square meals a day, and a roof over your head that's safe, and be able to afford to travel to your work and back. Like there's necessities of life. And I don't think that's enough. Like, I don't think I would feel very good as a business owner thinking, as long as you're scraping by and surviving, that's a good enough life. I don't think that's how I would look at it ever. But then on the other side, it's like you said, like if people come to work and they get their work done, and it's the results, and they're super productive, and we can be profitable as a business, that's really what I need, right? But like when I hear freaking like Elon Musk, like if you want to keep your job, you're just gonna like sleep on the floor in your office, and you're gonna work like basically round the clock forever because I want it that way, and I'm gonna just be mean to you. Screw you, man. Like, no, that's not rational for, I don't think, in anyone's world.
He didn't say that, did he?
He's been doing it. They've been talking about people literally. First of all, he fires them in the most bizarre way, and there's people that are sleeping on the floor in their office because that's the demands.
Yeah, I guess I didn't kept up with it, but that don't seem right. No. I mean, I don't know if that's true, for one. But two, if it is true, it's terrible.
Well, these are just things that I've seen on articles. Yeah. Like these are articles. I would say I saw it on Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter, so I didn't see it there. I think it's just articles about when he took over Twitter, all the things that he's been asking for. Now, I didn't write the articles, and I didn't check the sources, except that these were articles by like news outlets. So I'm kind of going like, man, probably pretty accurate. And I don't think he'd be shy to say it, right?
No, I think I remember hearing a story about somebody sleeping in a sleeping pod or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but I don't know the outcome or whatever. They just felt like they had to do that. I don't know that it was mandated to do that. I think they felt like they had to. They made a decision to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. But I don't want to go down the Twitter hole because it's just a big cesspool of whatever. But
but let's go back to basic need, right? We say, okay, what's a standard basic, or a basic standard of living? I mean, do we need a cell phone?
Yeah.
Do we need internet?
Yeah.
Do we need internet? Do we need a TV?
I would say in today's, but maybe not. I don't know. Like, well, you know what? Like, again, are we talking about necessities of life, of like life support, or just a comfortable life?
No. What I'm saying is we're having a difficulty as a group of people defining what it is we really need. What is the basic standard of living? Do I need a TV? Do I need a TV in every room? Do I need a car that's 1 year old or less, or do I need a car that is okay at 20 years old? I mean, what do I need is a basic standard of living. Do I need a 3,000 square foot home, or do I need a 200 square foot studio apartment? What's basic?
Yeah,
what's
you know basic? What this to me is a distraction. It's a red herring, because people will say, well, that's the argument. What's the basic standard of living? What we do know is somebody making $14,000 a year living in Seattle cannot make, like, that's not the argument. Well, do they need TV? They can't afford a roof over their head. They can't afford 3 meals a day that is just enough to survive. Like, they literally, that's the thing, is like, some of these things are so, I think, so far offside that it doesn't even make sense. And it's like, that to me that's distraction, when it's like, we should be able to figure out, like, yeah, there's this middle ground where it's like, yeah, it's debatable, but there's some things that I don't think should be debatable. Like, you should not have a family living on the street.
But aren't people mostly, I mean, when you're in that position, there's some support, at least temporarily, at least something where you're like, okay, I can get a meal somewhere. I can get housing somewhere.
That's bullshit, man.
No?
You're talking, this is what I'm talking about here. I'm talking, I'm talking.
What are the government programs doing? What are these government programs doing then?
Why do you have to have a government program with somebody that is, just listen, okay. Just listen. Why? Just listen to me.
We're talking the same language.
No. Let's just listen here. Why do you have to have a government program for people that are fully capable, that are working full time in what they're capable of doing, and just can't make enough money to survive? That's why you need government programs, right? Because it's not there for so many people where they can't even survive. Government programs, I think, should be helping people that have some sort of issue that is actually preventing them from working. They've got other health issues. They've got other problems. There's other challenges that go with it, right? But as a business, to basically say, well, I'm going to pay you, and the government programs can try and keep you alive so you have enough calories to live another day and come work for me. Like, I think that's not how I picture somebody that is a good employee that comes to work, does their job, and gets paid so little that they can't even survive. That to me is not realistic in any sense, or reasonable in any sense.
All right, so you called it a red herring. What's the real issue then?
Well,
if you think a basic standard of living, thinking about what do you need, because when you determine what the basic standard of living is, you can quantify it. Like, how much should it be? Is it $15 an hour? Is it $28 an hour?
Yeah.
We got to figure out what should they have. That's kind of weird. What should we have?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, is that this should not be a debate. What they should be able to say, okay, here's where there's a standard of living, and it's probably based on the region you live in. And the fact is, there's no shortage of data in the world. Zero shortage of data. So, and I'm not saying that it's like the average. No, the average is probably like up here. Like, that's one of the things that drives me nuts every time I see, like, the average housing price is so much more expensive. Yeah, because a bunch of baby boomers and older people have giant freaking houses. How much is an entry-level house? How much is an entry-level condo? But there's ways you can do that per region, and they can, like, I think people should be able to decide and say, here, it's not perfect, it's good enough, and here's a number, right?
All right. So you brought up houses, right? And I keep hearing this number all over the news about, it's 5% inflation. It's things that only risen 5%. All right, so I use the Wayback Machine. Have you ever used that? I think we've talked about it on here before, where you can go back in time and see what your website or anybody else's website looked like in the past. And so Courtney and I actually tracked a house plan, new house, from 2020 to 21, or 2020, 2021, and then 2022, 23, because it didn't change. 59% increase in the same house.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It went from 524 as the starting price. Now it's in the 800s.
Oh man. Yeah, that's crazy.
Same plan, 3 years post-COVID. That's not 5% inflation.
No.
59% increase in the same plan.
Yeah. And that's the problem with generalized numbers. That's why I'm saying that even a livable wage or a standard of living, we've got so far off topic here, but it's interesting. But 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 it has to be based on data from down to a regional perspective, because you can say like you say houses have gone up 5% in the United States, not in that area. Like that's extreme, right? Yeah. So that's the problem with this median or these averages. It's got to get when we have enough data. There's no shortage of data, so there's got to be. But the other side of it, I totally get what I'm saying here. You cannot go to a business and say, no, but saying. Like I know we can't go to a business and say your minimum wage just went up last week, because the margins aren't big enough that like everything gets like, I understand that, but it's what I'm saying is it's so broken, I think, the other way, that that's a question I think we have to ask is, and like I said, I don't think a $15 minimum wage is probably adequate to survive on. And you know what? A lot of businesses now, like you said, with automation and with robotics and everything else there, maybe they can manage, right?
Yeah, so think about the small business owners who maybe got 2 or 3 employees, and they're all just barely making it, right? They're all happy. It's a great company. They like working with each other. Maybe it's a bicycle repair shop. I don't know. I'm just saying that. You got your owner and you got 3 employees, and they all work on bikes, and they all talk to customers, and they kind of all work together. And the owner makes maybe just a little bit more than they do, right? Because it's his stuff and he's got to pay the bills.
Sometimes a little less, to be honest, but yeah.
Or maybe even less. Maybe he doesn't even take a paycheck sometimes, just because he wants to make sure everybody's paid. When you raise the rate for him, that's a hard decision he's got to make. Yeah. What do I do with these other? Can I get by with 2 employees? You know, your watchmaker that you always use, he doesn't hire employees. Maybe he can't. You said raise rates. Well, there's a whole other set of dynamics behind it.
Yep.
He gets enough business to support himself, but raising rates, I don't know.
Yeah, but if those 3 staff members cannot survive, like they're coming in without breakfast every day and no lunch, and like they're not going to be productive for you. Besides the fact that you're gonna want, just as a human being, to make sure that they've got some standard of living, but how can you expect them to perform for you as well?
Yeah, but we're also assuming that people aren't happy or they're not surviving. That's the underlying assumption, that, if they don't make enough money, they're not surviving. Well, maybe it doesn't take that for them. Maybe they're okay. Maybe they're okay, living the lifestyle they live and making the money they do, because it does everything they need in life.
Yeah. I don't think that, again, I think it's again, it feels like a red herring to me. Maybe some guy somewhere is okay with making $1,000 a month and living on his friend's couch. Like, maybe. But I'm just talking as a society. Do you want a workforce that is happy and engaged and can survive? And then see the other thing too is, do you want an economy that has a bunch of people that can afford to spend money, or do you want an economy with a few people at the percentage at the top that can spend money? Like, because you have to have this money going back into the economy to keep things moving, right?
Yeah, so $15 an hour is like 30-something thousand a year, right? 31,000. Yeah. The minimum wage equals times 2,080, 15,000. All right, so if you got 2 people making, first of all, I don't know anybody that's making minimum wage anymore. I can't point to it.
Well,
Maybe $7.25, because nobody's going to work for it. So most companies have moved up on their own.
I don't know if you can say that, because the fact that maybe I don't know anyone that is minimum wage doesn't mean there's probably, again, look at stats, because there's probably stats on here's how many people are actually earning minimum wage. But the other thing is, you cannot say to somebody, 2 people. That's
entry-level jobs. What if they're entry-level jobs? You're a 16-year-old and you work part-time on the weekends.
That's just again. You're pulling, because I can if you want to pull that out. okay, if you want to pull the story out, because this is where things are getting distracting. Like, to me, you have to look at again, coming up with a standard of living and what makes sense. Because you can tell a story like the 16-year-old, da-da-da-da, and I can say, oh yeah, what about the mom with 3 kids that's a widow? Right? It's a story, and there's probably someone out there, and never went to university because, again, university's $8 jillion, and has a minimum wage job wherever she lives, and so again, it's a story. You're making a story up to try and back up a point. Well, I can do the same thing, and both are true, right? Both are probably true, and both are completely wrong. But would that as an employer, like, how would that make you feel if you had an employee that was at $7 an hour in a major city with 3 kids and a widow? Because the other thing is this thing where, well, 2 people can make this. No, because there's a lot of people that don't have 2 people, right?
In her case, which is which is what government's supposed to do, is protect people like her, right? There's EBT, the free food program, I forget what it's called, whatever. But they get food stamps, right? They get that. They get free health care. They get, there's other ways to make money outside of that, but there's a lot of things that help support people that are in those type of positions.
Yeah, but you realize that probably 30% of the country wants to take all of that away. So what you're arguing for is you want to help people like that. We should have more social programs and spend more money on it.
No, you said 30% of the people want to take that away. So explain that to me.
Yeah. If you look at voters, like, you listen to the rhetoric, basically a big chunk of the voting public would take all of that away tomorrow. If they could vote for that, they would take all of it away in a second. They think it's like socialism. Yeah, it's a mom with 3 kids and she's a widow and she's making $7 an hour. Socialism. So, and I'm not like some big socialist, but there, like I said, there's some place here where you letting people just fall through the cracks. We have got so far off track here. I can't even remember what our topic was.
4-day work week. This is about the 4-day work week, and we're coming up on the hour. So, listeners, I apologize. Whatever hell happened here, sorry about that.
I wouldn't apologize, because honestly, this is what it's about. Like, the 4-day work week, where we started, we did not, like, really honestly, we didn't stray that far, because the decisions you make on a 4-day work week and the decisions on how would you transition to it? How would you compensate people?
There's still financial.
There's all these decisions that are financial, but you're trying to balance. It's not, the 4-day work week is not a financial decision. It's a financial impact. The reason people want the 4-day work week is all the stuff we've been talking about for the last, half an hour, is they want a 4-day work week because of a work-life balance, because of quality of life, to spend time with their kids, to spend time with their spouse, to do the hobbies they want, all these things. That is what we're talking about. And so that's why we may have, it felt like we're going off topic, but actually it's right on topic, because it's all tied together. You have people that want those things in life. They want more than just to survive.
Well, think about it. It's a variation of unions, which means they were initially formed for the safety of workers. Yeah. This is like mental health safety. This is like, life balance safety. This is a different form of safety, but it's still workers that are saying we want more, right? Meaning we want more work-life balance. We don't want to be beholden to an organization because I have more than just, I am more than just that company. So because it feels to me like, as a concept, you're fairly in favor of a 4-day work week. I am. I think it'd be awesome. I can't see how we can do it, not for some time, but I don't know how. I don't know how to implement it.
But you've been talking about like the work-life balance benefits, the mental health benefits, and everything else, and that took us down the track of, we're talking about people in kind of our circles and our business, and that it's more of, how could we do that and increase that work-life balance and improve mental health? And then in the same conversation, how can we say that it's okay for someone to be making $7 an hour and have massive, probably mental health stresses and all these other things. And that's okay for them. That's okay for this big chunk of society. And I don't think that's a rational way to look at it. I think workers responsible businesses, I get it. You have to be profitable. You have to be effective. Otherwise you're not going to be around. But where do you draw the line with treating employees with caring, not just treating them, caring about them, caring about their life, right?
Well, I think for the first time, what we did was we argued both sides of the coin. Not just the business owner, the small business, but also the employee side, right? And I think we have an opinion on both sides.
Yeah, which is weird because I haven't had a job in like 20 some years.
Yeah, but that's where the debate happens, is like going, because everything we've talked about, any of these cash flow issues, any of these other topics, there's always a connection between employee and employer. There's always a connection. So I like the fact that we tried to balance it. We're like going, okay, well, let's argue it from this side. Let's argue from this side. Yeah. You know, how do I feel as an employee? How do I feel as an employer? So I think it was a great episode. I think
it was interesting. I think the thing is, we talk a lot about finance and financial ramifications on business, but we do talk a lot about the issues of a successful business has to have people that are engaged and are pulling in the same direction and love the business they're working for, buy into the vision, all of these things we talk about. And there's a lot of things that are soft skills, a lot of things that are mental health, and all these things. To have a successful business, I think you have to have all of these things together. And I think this was a really interesting topic. And really, it's not like we were ever going to come up with the answer of a 4-day work week, because transitioning to it right now is really hard. Maybe as automation and AI and robotics improve, and they're proving so fast, that maybe we are only a few years away from actually being able to do it. But right now, it's I can see a massive challenge even with the benefits, right?
Yeah, can't agree with you more. Hey, that was episode 86.
Wait. Let's talk about cash flow, Mike, before we sign off here.
All right, so in 2023, I have found $8.8 million for my clients. I want to help you find hidden cash in your business too. So go to cashflowmike.com, go down to the bottom, schedule a hidden cash call, and I will find it for your business for free. How about that?
That was the best one you've ever done. Forget last week. That was outstanding. And that was after a 9%. I'll cut that one out because it was great. And I know for anyone that's like, oh, that's not, no, I know that money is in your business. We see it with our clients all the time. There's money that is just sliding out the bottom of your business, and Mike can help you find it. To go talk with them. There's no magic beans here, guys. This is just like managing your business better and plug in some holes, and you can make a lot more money. So, episode 86, wrap her up.
That's right. Go to cashflowmike.com or dryrun.com, and you will improve your business. Hey, thanks for listening.
Make sure you follow us. Make sure you subscribe. All the rest, and visit us at mikeandblaine.com, and make sure you buy us a beer.
Check out their website at mikeandblaine.com. Then subscribe to the podcast and buy these guys a beer.